So 321 and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Nope, not Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. My name is Jared. I am running as an independent candidate for governor in Alabama this year, and I do things different. So I am running a completely, well, as transparent as I can. Some people want to have meetings that are private, and I respect that. Everything else I do publicly as much as possible, including this meeting. And you are watching a strategy meeting for our campaign. So we're going to talk about ways that we can improve the campaign to better reach our audiences. And one thing I want to start doing, which we haven't done previously, is kind of give our pitch at the very beginning. So the purpose for this campaign is to ensure that dignity is provided to all of our residents so that they have better access to healthcare and education, and removing profit motive from our justice system to reduce societal harm rather than punishing crimes. The ambition is to ensure that every Alabama retains their right or gets it back to live a life of dignity, no matter their class, age, race, background, or identity. Primarily, we're trying to reach out to those who don't feel like their vote matters, especially in the state of Alabama, because it does for some races, including the governor. So that's kind of where we're at. That's what we're going for. And today is a little bit different on the strategy meeting. We are going to hyper focus on helping me hone my responses to questions, because one thing that I have been making clear from the beginning is that I don't know the answer to every question. And some feedback I got recently, which I appreciate, is that saying I don't know doesn't instill a bunch of confidence in someone who in candidates who don't have prior experience. So what we're going to try and do is use the research we've done so far and make sure we're highlighting the fact that we are looking into it. We just don't have the answer yet, rather than just saying I don't know. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're going to focus on some questions that will be called out to us or asked of us during an upcoming town hall with a group of people who are currently affected by the justice system, or the injustice system, if you look at any of my notes, and want to make sure we have concise answers to those as best as possible. We are not going to get through every question, because we went through the first 10 or 12 on our policy meeting on Tuesday, and I think we have another 20 or so to get through. So we won't get through all of them, but we're going to try and use this as a time to make sure that I am instilling confidence rather than, well, I don't know, the state's broken, they don't tell us everything. So like, that's kind of where we're at. So let's get through where we were last time, at least hopefully. It looks like that's here. So the next question up on the ticket, or up on the list, is continuing. Like, I guess it's not a full sentence, but do I continue on, or plan on continuing, new prison construction? Meaning the prisons that are being built, they just sold a bunch of bonds, and we're spending $400 million from our COVID relief. If you're not aware, go look that up, because that's why I'm running. We are building new prisons. We signed the contracts. We sold bonds, and we're using $400 million of COVID funds. It sounds like they're asking if I want to push forward with the new construction. Okay, there actually is a little bit. This is, if elected, would you continue to push forward with the construction of the new prisons? KIV has begun. Why or why not? What I wrote down, though, so we're going to give what I wrote down, my initial thoughts, and we'll see if we can come up with a quick way to respond to that. If possible, we'll shut them down, the new construction, to avoid debt obligations. So we've basically put the state in debt for these prisons. We've sold bonds, which means we are going to pay people interest for their initial investment. They gave us money, we are going to pay it back plus interest. If not, use the construction time to lower the system population, so ADOC, lowering the total population of incarcerated individuals, to make the most of the new facility when trying to get them out of the system, while also trying to lower recidivism rates. So if someone asks if we're trying to build new construction or continue the new construction, I don't know if we can stop it. So we need to come up with a short and quick response saying, like, I don't know. So is it if, this is the part where it's like, I just want to need everybody's help? Because I would say, I'm not sure if we can, but we need to start with something different. So I don't know if we have anything other than reaching out to groups like Alabama Appleseed and Alabama Arise. I know they're working on policy. I don't know if they would have the answer. So I think, and this is where I need everyone's feedback. So if you're on the call, this this needs to be a feedback session, and my campaign manager just had to drop, so that's cool. Hopefully that was a tech issue. Anita, go ahead.
Okay, so when I was in school, our PR professors pretty much all said this: when someone is asking you a question, and I think even though it's PR, it definitely applies in a candidate setting. When you're asked a question that you don't know the answer to, or you're not sure what the solution could possibly be, you never lie, which I know you won't do. But it is, preferred to say, very much like what you just said. So I'm not entirely sure what we can do in this scenario as governor, but I am reaching out to this group. We're working with them, or I plan to work with them on policy research to make sure that, if elected, I am able to do what's right by the state. I'm able to, figure out what's going to work best in this scenario and not hurt the state in the process. You could even say, personally, I don't like this. I don't necessarily want this to continue, but I also want to do right by the state.
Yeah, because we have obligations. So whatever that,
right.
I don't know what that contract looks like. So
exactly.
we have to figure out if it will punish us further. Like we're
right.
already going to go into debt. If we break the contract, is there a, is there a cancellation, policy where, oh, you backed out on the deal? Well, guess what? You still owe us, right. A third of the money or whatever it is. So I don't know. So we'd have to look into it.
Exactly. Yeah. And while this is mainly, towards journalists, if a journalist is asking you a question, or, I think it works also with the general public. So like if I know personally, even without, the PR background and training, if I were talking to someone and I said, well, what do you plan on doing about this? And they, look at me for a second and they say, you know what, I don't have a plan for that yet, but I am working on one.
Right.
But I am reaching out to this group and this group, and we are talking about it. We are working through it, and I will have a plan.
Yeah. So let's.
As soon as I know what I can do.
Yeah, I think we need to double check which group helps with which, because I'm having a hard time because they all, they all have a bunch of Alabama and then A words. Like not all of them, but like Alabama Arise and Alabama Appleseed, I'm still getting mentally confused with which one does what. And I think it's Appleseed is mostly the justice stuff. Arise, I believe, is just a broad, like, we need to improve Alabama, so we're working on a lot of things. But we need to make sure I'm referencing the right group first, because that's let's reference whichever one. I think it's Appleseed, but I need to reference that one first, because that's their primary thing, and then say also groups like Alabama Arise and any others that we can find, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, and we can put that in the OTCJ document in part of that response piece. Actually, I have it open. I might as well type that in. So
I'm going to put this in the research team so that we can make sure that we have, maybe we can do like a bulleted list of what each organization does for you, so that you have that at your fingertips whenever you're answering questions about that.
And that I can just try to memorize. So I'm not like, let me double check the notes. Let me
listen. I don't want to put too much in your head, but it's okay to.
No, I need something definitive to look at, because what I've been doing is just bouncing back and forth and getting to know each organization a bit more, and what is already being looked at, but narrowing down who is doing what it needs to happen. It hasn't been done in my head yet. So if we have something I can reference periodically when I'm trying to decompress, I can just look at the list and got it. They do this, X, Y, and Z. If you can get names of the heads of those organizations on there also, that would be ideal.
All right, will do.
Cool. All right. So financial audits, the, it just says financial audits and says, are you willing to have an audit performed on each facility, books on each facility's books to see where their funds are being spent and what makes information, or sorry, and make that information part of the public report in the name of transparency for taxpayers to see where their money is being dispersed? My answer is yes. Like that's a clear, like the whole state needs to be audited. So like the answer is yes. Next question. I'm not worried about that one. Addressing extreme temperatures. This is something we've got to find an answer to because it's inhumane isn't the right word for it. So if people aren't aware, most of our prisons, if not all of them, are non-climate controlled. So like we're in the South, they're in big concrete boxes, and there's no climate control. There's a story I heard from somebody who, man, I can't remember if it was somebody on the inside or if it was a pen pal for somebody who's writing back and forth to some of our incarcerated individuals, and they were talking about an inmate who got in trouble because they were treated like they were trying to escape, but they were literally just trying to get to the window to get cool air. In the middle of winter, it was so hot they were trying to get cool air from the window. Like it still gets so hot that they're still trying to get. I don't know. Like I don't know how to even. If you don't see those videos, like I know they're not public because the inmates can get in trouble for the stuff they're showing. The conditions are horrible. Like I don't know how to express that. So what we need is a way of responding to this, because like the answer is yes, I want to. The question is they're asking how. Taylor, you're unmuted just for reference.
Oh, whoops.
Yep.
Just because people needed to go to the post office.
You're good.
Fine.
You're good. Amanda said Alabama Appleseed is for law and justice. So sure. Thank you. I had that open in another tab. So the temperature stuff, like the facilities aren't designed for it. So like I don't know how we even address that. Like I don't know. I mean that is a new facility situation, but like we have 26,000-ish people because the numbers are, let's say, not necessarily accurate. Say it that way. What we're aware of is about 26,000 people that are in the system, and the new facility is only going to hold like 4,000. So like the one new facility isn't going to solve this problem. I don't even have a beginning thought to this, but I need some kind of response if we don't have an answer by the 3rd, which we probably won't because it's the 30th. So, or not the 3rd. It's the 4th. I think the meeting's on the 4th. Anyway, so if we can have. Actually, there's responses. Taylor, are you on? Yeah, you're on TikTok. Can you make note of those and take a look at those? I'm trying not to get distracted by TikTok. Claudia, thank you.
Oh yeah, in the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my way.
Okay. So I need an honest response that also addresses the fact that like it's a very big problem that I don't have an answer to. And I need help. Which is that's the whole point of this meeting. We may only get through like, I don't know, 10 questions, but it's better than not having answers to those questions. So any thoughts on how we can respond to that? Oh, hold on. There is some clarification. I skipped over the clarification. They aren't required to install cooling systems, but there are faulty ventilation equipment. So, okay, no, that's a funding thing then. We just need to make sure we divert funds from one place and put it into fixing the facilities. Yeah, so the response there is, and I'll practice offline, but the response is essentially, my understanding is that there is ventilation equipment installed, but it is not currently functioning, much like the toilets and the showers and everything else. So we have to review all of the funding and make sure we are spending money on the facilities that we have in order to give our current incarcerated people more dignity, more of their dignity. We'll say it that way, because they have dignity. We just need to give it back to them. So, thoughts on that as a response? Any concerns?
I'm just gonna say I can't brain both right now, so I'm in the TikTok. I'm in the TikTok weeds.
All good.
So I'm just letting you know.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Review and reallocate. There we go. Reallocate funding to facility maintenance. Maintenance. If I could spell things right. There we go. All right. Next one is setting up a boot camp facility to reduce recidivism. In other states around the country, there are prisons that are boot camp style facilities that have proven success with decreased recidivism rates. Would you be willing to take incarcerated volunteers from the state's facilities for a structured discipline program for this type of incentive, like we do with education, vocational, and rehab courses? I am not familiar with that stat where they say it's proven success. So that is something I would need more info on before saying yes. I will say, so actual response here. After I think it out. And that's why we're having this meeting. So I understand that the incarceration system we have set up has a very large recidivism rate, a part of which is not preparing those who are leaving to re-enter it into society. If there are existing programs in place in other states that have helped reduce recidivism rates in similar justice style systems that we have, I'm more than willing to look into those. I'm not sure if that's the right answer, but it is at least an answer. Anita, John, or even TikTok, if you have feedback on that specifically. I know Taylor's busy trying to manage contents or comments, so I'll let her handle those. But like I'm just not sure that those. I'm not sure when somebody says boot camp, the thing that comes to my head is probably not what they mean. So I'm not sure what they actually meant. John, you unmuted for a second.
Yeah, I think I was kind of going along the same thing you were. Is it like a military feed-in program, or just?
No, I think it's more like when you have they're mentioning the programs that we have in education. Well, you know what? No, they're talking about educational, vocational, and rehab courses in the system currently. I think of it as like when a student's acting up in school and getting in trouble, they send them to like not boot camp going into military, not like a feeder, but a similar style program where it's very structured, very rigid setup, and is intended to get people prepared to enter back into society. And if it's that, I don't know that's not. I don't think that's the solve for the problem we have. I would need to find out more about those programs, because like that, I'm not sure that's actually the right solution to the problem. So at that point, I think we need to have psychologists involved to make sure that the problem we're solving is solved by rigid structure and not by what I'm aware of, which is essentially poverty, is the main cause for why people end up in prison, at least in our state. I'll say it that way. I'm not sure a structured, rigid boot camp is going to solve that problem. Like, now, if it's paired with the things they're mentioning, if it's paired with education, vocation, and rehab, maybe. But I don't know that everybody has to go through boot camp like that. That seems like a very specific program for a very specific type of person who's maybe been in so long that they need help getting some structure, because right now it's rough. Like, they don't have a lot of structure. Like, again, not everybody sees some of the stuff that I'm seeing currently because it's shared privately because they can get in trouble for sharing that stuff. But it's rough. I mean, they have guards sleeping on duty while inmates by the dozens are sitting in the next room where they're supposed to be being watched, just doing drugs, which them doing drugs isn't the problem for me necessarily. They're just trying to take their mind off the situation. Like, they have no hope. I understand why they're doing it, but on the flip side, we also, like, they're just there. Like, there are people that are there that have no hope of getting out, and like, what do you expect from them if you just put them in a room with 30 to 100 other inmates with nothing to do all day, and then sometimes with no supervision? Like, those people have been in there that long, might need some structured programs. Like I maybe, but I don't know that it's definitely not the only solution. So maybe that's the answer. It's like, hey, for certain individuals, the boot camp program or a boot camp program may be beneficial when paired with, education, vocational, and rehab programs. So that may be the answer.
So for me, the term boot camp,
their phrase, not mine.
Right, it gives me bad feelings.
Yeah,
because it just, like, even the boot camp programs that you hear about them sending, kids who get into trouble at school, they sound abusive to me.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. And I don't know that taking someone who society has, decided isn't worth looking at anymore,
right,
locking them in a box. I'm not entirely sure that a boot camp situation, if it is what I'm thinking of, is the right solution either. And maybe this program is not like that at all, and
yeah.
I hope it's not. But that is, to me, just that phrase feels, are these inmates now going to get screamed at by, someone and made to, do lots of physical exercise and face in the dirt kind of stuff? Or
right.
Are they, I like the idea of educational programs.
Educational, vocational, and rehab, like mental,
right.
Including like mental health therapy. Like not just like if it's drug related, but just like some of these people have been in. I'm going to keep bringing up Willie Simmons periodically because I'm trying to reach out to him now. I've got to figure out how to get that set up. I'm talking to somebody later today, hopefully. So like Willie Simmons has been in there for 40 years. Like, he has life without parole. So like, unless somebody does something, he's not getting out. But there are people who have been in for long periods of time, and we can't expect them just to re-enter the world after being in that situation, especially in our type of prison system, for any period of time without having taken on some type of trauma. Like, I just, like, there's no way to expect that of people realistically. So we have to understand that. So the mental health care has to be paired with the education, and I potentially boot camp might make sense. I can't say it won't. I would much rather talk to a psychologist first and say, hey, maybe if the program's designed correctly. But then, I don't know, the boot camp thing is what concerns me. I need to know more about what they mean by boot camp, and like, I don't know that I have that answer, and I don't know that I will until we have this this meeting. And this is going to be more of an interview setting, so the answer needs to be assumed that I'm not going to get an immediate reply, right? So like, this won't be it won't be the person asking me the question. I'm getting the question from someone else. So we'll pair it. I think we'll focus more on the rehab and education, and then mention my concern with the phrasing of boot camp and needing to know more about that program they are wanting to implement before even saying yes or no. Like,
it just reminds me of those. I'm going to show my age here. Back in the 90s, when Maury and Jerry Springer and stuff like that would send bad kids to boot camp, like, it just gives me those vibes.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm picking up really sketch vibes.
Yeah, and it may not be what they mean, but it's definitely what I'm hearing. And again, this isn't the type of conversation we have in the interviews, but it's like that. This is where my limited perspective comes in, because like when I think of that, I think of what you're thinking of. I think of what was the movie where one of the kids? It was back in the '90s. He had to go to boot camp. Was it Toy Soldiers? Was that the movie where they all went to like a Catholic like private school, but it was military-ish, and then like they had to fight off like some foreign invaders? Like, does anybody else remember that movie? Like that's what pictures in my head when I hear boot camp is like a separate school, they're training for the military, and then like it just doesn't seem like the right solution. Anyway, so let's move on. We'll focus on the education and rehab, and then mention we need more info on the boot camp program and its actual success, and what that success, how they're defining success, because I would be curious about that part. So the next one is incarceration, poverty, and justice. Many families with incarcerated loved ones find themselves struggling financially, mentally, and emotionally. And through research, there's clearly nowhere for many of them to turn it for assistance. What can we do to offer justice to victims without causing families of the incarcerated to become impoverished? What I wrote is more something that needs to be addressed to the person actually asking the question. So we can't use that answer because it's a question. So like we need to find a way of actually responding to this. My initial response would be something, knowing what we're trying to do today, would be something more along the lines of we are trying to rethink the entire justice system so that we're actually reducing societal harm as a whole and trying to prevent it from happening in the future by that same person, but also by other people in similar situations. A lot of that for our state is poverty. So incorporating paid work options into the incarceration system rather than slave labor, so that the incarcerated individuals and their families don't lose ground while they're incarcerated. I think that's the short answer. And this is where I wait for feedback, and while Taylor continues to monitor TikTok. If no feedback, we're moving on. I'll take that as that sounds like a good reply to you guys. So we'll go there.
It does. I'm sorry. I was about to say that sounds like a good reply
Okay,
to me.
cool.
I was writing down stuff.
All right. We are looking towards deuces. I'm writing down my own response so I can look at it again. Total societal harms and paid incarcerated people.
Hey, Jared, can
Yeah.
you go back to what you mean by lose their ground?
Yeah, so if somebody's incarcerated, right, we have to realize that when we incarcerate one person, they are more likely than not to have family still in the free world. So when that person is incarcerated, they now are separated from them, which could be it could be monetary, but that's not necessarily the only concern, but it is a big concern since poverty is part of the reason people end up in the system in the first place. So when we bring people into the system and we don't, we pull them out of their current way of earning money, whether it's legal or not, doesn't matter. They're earning money, which then helps them pay for food, housing, water, like everything that you need to live is all paid with money, right? So when we bring somebody out of their revenue streams and put them in prison, that source of income for their family, whether direct or indirect, So, like spouse and kids, or, if they live with aunts and uncles, doesn't really matter. That source of revenue is now taken away from the rest of the family. So that's what I mean, is as soon as we pull them out, the family now has to take on more of that burden, plus all the fines and fees that are applied to the person who's incarcerated. So not only are we making them no longer earn money, we are now adding debt on top of that. And when poverty is a huge concern, or a huge reason that people end up in the system, we're now just making them more likely to come back, because they're poorer when they leave than they were when they came in. And if poverty was the issue, it's one vicious cycle. And to quote, what is his name? Is it Korg from Thor 3? Like, it's like a circle, but not a real circle, a freaky circle. Like, it just, something nobody in office at least wants to talk about. Like, we literally apply fines or fees at every step of the way. So for instance, parole. Like, I mean, you have to pay a fee to your parole officer every month when you get out on parole, which, like, okay, let's assume that makes sense. I don't think it does, but, like, let's assume that makes sense. If you were let out on parole and have a felony on your record, then you can't get a lot of jobs, which means you're now making less, but also your net income is even lower, because you have to pay a monthly parole fee, which rivals a cell phone bill. So, like, it just that's what I mean by setting people back. It's intended. I'm going to use that word intentionally. It is intended to keep people poor and get them back into the system. If you don't have enough resources to begin with, you are unlikely to separate yourself from our injustice system. So I hope that answers the question. Taylor, I don't know if that was yours or somebody in the comments, but if that didn't answer it, let me know.
It was in the comments. Cool.
If commenter, if that didn't answer your question, please let me know. Let's see. How will you diversify the parole board? So everybody's on the same page. The parole board is the sole group responsible for approving or denying parole and or pardons, and pardons are the only way you can get your rights back in the state of Alabama. Now, you have to be pardoned by a group of 3 people. They are technically appointed by the governor. The caveat there that a lot of people don't know or don't think about is I don't have free choice of who I want to put in that position. There's a group of 5 people that I have to pick from, and those are chosen by the lieutenant governor of the state, the Speaker of the House, and the President pro tempore of the Senate. If I have those 3 people right. Yeah. To further restrict my options, one of those people has to have at least 10 years of experience in law enforcement. So I have to have an LEO of 10 years of experience or more, plus 2 more. And when one of those positions becomes vacant, I have to pick from a predetermined list picked by 2/3 of them are in our legislature. The other one is another elected official, the lieutenant governor. So when they say diversify, the concern right now is no one on the board seems to care that people are being denied their pardons and paroles at an astronomical rate. Like 80-ish% are being denied on average. If you take specific things like the right to vote, it jumps up to like 98% or something. I don't have the stat in front of me, but it is a much higher number, where people aren't getting their right to vote back when we're talking about pardons. So typically they've already done their time, or they've been on parole for like 3 years and haven't done anything wrong since. And they're asking for the right to vote back, and they're being denied like 90+% of the time currently. And they're trying to figure out a way of broadening that out. So the way the law is written, just so we're all on the same page, the way the law is written is it says that the board should be a representation of various demographics, but it's written in such a way that it's, this demographic, this demographic, this demographic, or this demographic. And currently, I think I haven't looked into everybody's history, but it looks like they're just looking at regional variations, right? So it's like, hey, we should have people that represent the different parts of the state, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different race, different gender, and currently we're not broadening that entirely. Taylor, I'll get to you in a second. My response so far is that I want to, as best I can, given my selections, will broaden the Board of Pardons and Paroles to make it more like a jury of your peers rather than people who are currently in an elite level of the state, like an elite position or elite class. And I need a better response for that, because I know that comes across wrong. Taylor, go ahead.
Amanda just said that you have some good insights in the Facebook comments. If you want to.
Oh,
head
cool.
back
Yeah, let me jump over. Yes, yeah.
Sorry.
Cool. No, thank you. I have like 3 windows open, so I have to tab back and forth. Thank you for bringing that up.
She said it was on the question before this one. But
Gotcha.
You didn't type it.
Yeah, okay. Let me, everybody else ruminate on the last thing that I just said, because I'm not sure there's a really good answer. Because it's a lot of it's out of my control. But let's jump in. Let's jump back. So Elizabeth, definitely need better education, especially for those who are poor and disenfranchised. Elizabeth, I'm not sure if you're meaning prior to or once in the system. Let's see. What good is having hopes and aspirations of climbing financial and societal ladder within their communities when they're kept ignorant and poor by the state? And it ran out of room, so I'm going to read. That's supposed to be helping them. I think you mean before they enter, which I thoroughly agree with. I also think we need better education once people are actually incarcerated, because that's a part of the reason some people end up in anyway, is lack of movement in the economy. So if we can get them educated in another trade or something else, they can help. It can help them once they get out, assuming somebody will hire them. Whole nother problem. Removing fines. Criminal fines need to go. Yeah. So we fine for all kinds of things, and that is something we're looking into. Again, part of this is I'm not sure how much I can do as governor directly outside of influencing those who can make those decisions. But yes, we're keeping poor people poor by charging them monetary fines for things like probation, ankle bracelets, and such. Yes, that's what it's $75 to put it on and $10 a day to have an ankle monitor on, and that is we do that in Baldwin County where I live. We do that for people who aren't even convicted of anything. They're not on parole. They are awaiting a hearing. So we charge them for an ankle monitor instead of putting them in jail, which either one of those had a whole nother problem. Anyway, $75 a day for the initial installation and $10 a day, to the tune of thousands of dollars every month that we are making off of people who are waiting to go to court. It's just sickening. Anyway, it's not as bad as some of the things that are happening in the system, but it's still bad. It's bad enough that many people living within the Black Belt are living within homes that don't even have safe water systems or safe drinking water. Some houses have wastewater just flowing to their backyards. Yeah, they're straight piping into cesspools. Local governments aren't doing anything to help fix it. When you grow up in an environment like that, watching people of authority continue to treat you as less than, then you get to the point of F you, man, and isolate into small groups of like-minded others and decide crime is the only way to survive. And it's not so that you decide that. In some cases, it is. Like, I don't deny the fact that criminal behavior is the only way to survive for some people, and that pushes, that informs my current debate over legalizing marijuana. Like, it's a whole other conversation that we can go into later. If the question comes up, we'll deal with it. But Elizabeth, you said prior and within. Yeah, so we have to figure out, if we offer education systems, what I've heard is that not everybody participates, and part of it is that hopelessness you mentioned. So we've got to figure that part out also. It's incentivizing people to actually participate. Yeah. So Elizabeth, thank you for jumping in. I appreciate it. All right, so board and parole, diversifying the board. Given my choices that are presented to me by the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the House, the President pro tempore of the Senate, I will do my best to make a decision on new board members that better represent the socioeconomic status of our state in an effort to make it closer to a jury of your peers that help decide if you can get out on parole and or have your rights back. And I think that says it well. If no feedback, I will move on.
Before you move on, Jared.
All right, cool.
Sorry.
You're good.
No, I just have a question in TikTok that is unrelated, but I don't think we have answered it before, or I don't know the answer. Can a governor reinstate abortion by their self, or do you have to go, like, is that something you can do?
That I'm aware of, no. The thing that people are pushing for right now is a special session. People are petitioning Kay Ivey to have a special session, which is within her power, to have the legislature come back into session to then repeal the law that we implemented in 2019. I don't believe, because the governor's position is to help execute laws, right, and people, but that's a whole nother discussion. So the governor doesn't make them, they basically sign off on them. So it's already been signed off, and the law was written by the legislature, so they have to essentially repeal, and then the governor would sign off on the repeal. In our current legislative legislation makeup, I don't know that calling for a special session would do any good. I'm not sure it would help. What I have been telling people is I will call the special session. Like, I have no problem calling the special session. What we need help with, and since it was on TikTok, you have to make sure that we're voting people in who will want to repeal that law. It's not within my control. That's not something I can do. Now, if I'm wrong, which happy to admit when I'm wrong, if there's some way I can and you're aware of it, please tell me. Yes, I would love to. I don't think I can. Nothing I've found that says that I actually can, not in a realistic fashion.
Thank you. I didn't know the answer, and it was important, so yeah. I just wanted to.
No, that's cool. That's it's actually related, because it is illegal for people to assist with or provide abortion care in our state, and the law is written currently to sound like they're talking about doctors, but our attorney general has said in the past that they would have no problem using the conspiracy laws in Alabama to attack people who are, or not attack, I mean, it is an attack, but go after anyone who helps with transgender or gender affirming healthcare for transgender youth, which is now illegal also. So they've said, like, hey, it technically says like doctors, but we have no problem using our conspiracy clause or conspiracy laws to go after people who help someone get care. So there are plenty of people who are saying, including, I think somebody high up at the Democratic Party, Chris England, I think is his name. I don't remember his position because I'm not a part of the party. But they were making the point that if they're willing to use the conspiracy laws to help go after people helping with transgender affirming care, why wouldn't they just do the same thing with abortion care? So all of that to say, it's a felony in Alabama to help provide abortion care. So the prison system and abortions are very much so tied together right now. So it was a really good and on-point question, even though not direct. It's definitely related. So let's try one more, and then we're going to take a quick bio break before we get back to field operations. And Lost in Space, I just happened to see your comment. I'm not sure what you mean by they are all privately owned and operated prisons. There are very few private prisons. For profit, yes, but private is not the right term. There are very few that are actually private prisons. So, and I know that about Alabama. I assume that's true about the rest of the country. We're speaking about Alabama politics here. I don't know that I have to go look. I'm not entirely sure we even have a private prison currently in operation. I have to go look. But either way, it's a small percentage, so I haven't focused on private prisons necessarily. They're all for profit, so my focus is on that aspect. Let's see. Last question for today. How will you encourage people hold on. I mixed up two sentences. How will you encourage appropriate and qualified nominations for the parole board? So this is following off the last one. What qualifications will I consider to be qualified for the parole board? So that would be life experience, geography, and socioeconomic status, which I kind of hinted at in the previous answer, but those two questions are kind of linked. And by life experience, I mean, like, ideally we would have somebody who's previously been incarcerated on the parole board. Like that just makes sense to me, to have somebody who's been through that system and understand the situation to be a part of that board. And I don't think there's anything in the law that says they can't be, thankfully. I might have just given somebody an idea. Oops. But that's where I'm at. So those are the three answers. That's a pretty straightforward answer, so I think we're good. The second one, how will you respond if only provided with unqualified or undiversified nominees? I will do my best to select the best answer or best option out of those, and then potentially choose a new chair of the board who makes the big decisions about the board. So currently, that person doesn't seem to care to help people get their rights back, and they're kind of the one that's in charge of picking which hearings to have and which hearings not to have, if I understand that law correctly. So I would be hopefully swapping out who's the chair to see if that helps. So we only have a few minutes left, so I'm not going to bring any more questions yet. We have way too many to get through anyway, so it's not like it's not going to happen. And lost in space, no reason to apologize. You're good. It's a common misconception. So we have to vote in new folks across the board to get the rights back. Amanda, thank you. I fully agree. Please make sure you research your options. The people who are running for races local to you, and do your best to vote people in who hopefully care about people. Elizabeth, you made another comment. All medical care decisions should be between doctor and patient. They need to be protected in some way. I thoroughly agree. Our state passed laws that say otherwise, so we have to fight against that. And again, vote people in that hopefully care about people more than those that were in 2019. I'll say it that way. Let's see. What about working to get abortion law on the ballot for people to vote for? Yeah, Mimi, that's a really good question. That is up to the legislature. Like, literally, what I can call a session for them to do it. They don't have to. The way our laws are written, I can call a special session and say, hey, we have to focus on X. So the problem is, if they have enough of a majority, they don't have to listen to what I've asked them to do, but they can still have a session. So it's a two-edged sword where we can call a special session, but if they have enough votes, they can just say, yeah, we really don't care what you want us to do. We're gonna talk about this, and they literally could pass more repressive bills. So we have to be careful with it. I'll call the session if you guys think we have people in place to repeal things. So let's do that. Lost in space. So CoreCivic is building 2 private prisons in Alabama. Ivy signed the bill last year. So the bill that was signed last year was to appropriate the funds. I don't know that CoreCivic is still involved. Please double check, because I believe that there was enough public pushback where CoreCivic backed out, and that's why we had a new contract that got signed in either April or May of this year, and the bonds were sold in the end of June. So if somebody will double check that for me, if I'm wrong and CoreCivic's still actively involved, I'd love to know. But my understanding was they backed out after public pressure. So Mimi, sorry, there isn't a way. That was May 24th. The cutoff was May 24th, and we did not get enough signatures. For the record, it's 52,000 this year, at least, this election cycle. You have to have a third of the previous electorate from the last election sign pieces of paper saying they want you on the ballot, have your name on the ballot, and that's an expensive endeavor. The Libertarian Party spent about $200,000 from what I hear on getting enough signatures, and we did not have $200,000 to get signatures. So how do you fix gerrymandering within the state? That's usually why some of these politicians stay in power. That's legislature. They're in charge of that. Our state has done things very backwards. And if you need to look into it, like, the Constitution is 400,000 words long. The longest Constitution and the longest currently in use Constitution in the world is Alabama's at 400-ish thousand words and 977 plus amendments. we put everything into our Constitution. I say everything, there's an asterisk, but it's practically everything, including the tax rate for land ownership is in the Constitution, and that's why people can get away with owning lots and lots of land in the state and not have to pay a bunch of taxes, which would fund all these programs we've been talking about. I can't change that. It is in the Constitution. So the legislature would have to bring it up, they would have to vote on it, and then ask you to vote on it. And then I would sign it. So I'm fourth on the totem pole on that that hierarchy. I'm the last person that has to deal with it. So yeah. Anyway, let's take a quick break. We have another meeting at 10. If you want to join us, you can. That one is going to be focused on field operations. So we're going to talk like boots on the ground stuff. We have some events coming up that I'd love to get some info out. So if you can, join us again. As always, if you want to join the conversation and actually like talk directly during these meetings, the links are publicly available on the website. Please go there. It's the events and meetings tab. There's a button for joining each of our 3 events each week. Since we're on Saturday, we'll talk about Saturday. On Saturdays, we have strategy at 9, field operations at 10, and then on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., we have policy meetings. So you're welcome to join the meetings. Please come in and help out. If you care about the residents of this state, you are welcome to join those meetings. Literally join the meeting, not just chat. You are welcome to jump in. Corey, we're about to end. Come back in like 5 minutes. We have a field operations meeting at 10. So I would love to have you on the call if you can. If you want to jump in the call, head to the website and hit the join meeting. But TikTok, we're going to end the stream. We'll see you at 10, hopefully.
Hang on, raise my hand. Don't end TikTok.
Okay. Well, I just hit end already. Go ahead. We can hit it everywhere else. Everywhere else is live
This
still.
was for TikTok.
Ah, crap.
A couple of people didn't realize they could schedule a meeting, so I was just gonna throw it out there that you
Dang
could
it.
schedule a meeting.
Dang it. Okay. Well, that stinks.
Look, I raised my hand. That's on you.
It is. I'm really sorry. That's what I get for trying to pay attention. Next time, just interrupt. It's okay.
I will.
We were just chat. Like it wasn't. We weren't chat. We were chatting. It's fine. All right.
Next time I'll just be like, "Ah."
Yeah. Don't end it.
Be
Facebook.
rude like me. I interrupt.
I
Facebook.
usually do.
Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. I will see you in about 5 minutes. We're going to start a little late because we're taking a bio break. We're all people. We're all humans. We have to use the bathroom. We're going to do that before we start the next one. Add it to video prompts. Amanda, good call. Please add that task to video prompts and I'll record it and we'll post it on how to schedule a meeting. Everybody else,